He stayed in the clearing a little longer, making sure there were no other dangers nearby. The mother bear and cub didn't leave immediately, which surprised him. They seemed to understand that he meant no harm, that he had saved them when no one else could. He felt a warmth in his chest, a mix of relief and pride. It wasn't often that someone could directly impact the life of a wild animal, and he realized how lucky he was to have been in the right place at the right time. As the sun dipped lower, casting an orange glow over the forest, the mother bear finally nudged her cub toward the path leading deeper into the woods. They turned and disappeared among the trees, but he could see the cub glance back one last time. It was as if they were saying thank you, a silent promise that their lives had been changed forever by his actions. He stood there, taking it all in, feeling a deep connection to the forest and its creatures, knowing that this encounter would stay with him for the rest of his life. Walking back along the path, he thought about what had just happened. The forest seemed different now, more alive, more full of secrets and stories. He couldn't explain why, but he felt like a small part of a larger world, a world where kindness mattered even to the smallest of creatures. Every step he took felt meaningful, and he knew that he would return to this place again, maybe never to see the bears, but to feel that same sense of wonder and connection. By the time he reached the edge of the forest, night had fallen, and the stars were beginning to twinkle in the sky. The air was cooler, and the sounds of the forest had changed, quieter now, but not empty. He looked back toward the path that had led him to the baby bear and his mother, and he smiled. Something extraordinary had happened here today, something he would carry with him forever. He woke early the next morning, still thinking about the bears he had rescued. The memory of their pleading eyes stayed with him, and he felt a strange pull to go back to the forest, to make sure they were safe. Packing a small bag with water, some food, and the first aid kit he always carried, he set out on the trail once again. The air was cool and fresh, and the sunlight filtered gently through the trees, making everything look alive and new. As he walked deeper into the forest, he listened carefully to every sound. Birds chirped above him, leaves rustled softly, and somewhere in the distance, he heard the faint crackle of branches under weight. Then he heard it, a low groaning sound that made his stomach tighten. It was coming from a small clearing just ahead. He slowed his pace and moved cautiously, knowing that wild animals could be unpredictable. When he reached the clearing, he froze. There, caught in another snare, was the mother bear again. She had somehow gotten trapped once more, and this time her injuries were worse. Her leg was bleeding more, and she struggled weakly, unable to pull free. The sight made his heart pound. He had thought she was safe, but the forest was full of dangers, and it seemed they had caught up to her. The baby bear ran toward him, squealing and darting nervously around the clearing. It pressed against its mother, nudging her, trying to encourage her, clearly distressed that she was hurt again. He felt a surge of protectiveness. He could not leave them like this. Carefully, he took out his knife and began to cut the snare, talking to the mother bear in soft, calm tones. She watched him warily, eyes wide with pain and fear, but did not attack. The cub stayed close to her side, occasionally glancing up at him as if asking if he would save them again. It took a long time to free her, but eventually the metal loop came off. The mother bear stepped back, limping slightly, and the cub nuzzled her, making small sounds of relief. He realized at this time they needed more help. He bandaged her leg as best he could and gave her some food, watching carefully to ensure she was not going to run and hurt herself further. It was a tense, emotional moment, filled with quiet understanding between human and animals. He felt a deep connection to them, more than he could explain. They trusted him completely, and he knew he would do anything to protect them. For the next few days, he returned to the forest regularly, bringing extra food and checking on the bears. He stayed at a distance, careful not to frighten them, but close enough to make sure the mother bear was healing properly. The cub would come to him occasionally, playful and curious, while the mother bear kept a watchful eye. Slowly, he noticed changes in them. The mother bear grew stronger each day, her movements becoming steadier, and the cub became more confident, exploring the forest but always returning to them. He felt a sense of accomplishment and wonder, knowing that his small actions had made a real difference in their lives. During this time, he also became more aware of the dangers in the forest. Hunters, traps, and the harsh realities of nature were all constant threats. He began marking areas with signs, warning others, and sharing tips with rangers about how to protect the wildlife. His connection with the bears grew deeper, as if they understood that he was there for them, not to harm but to help. He found himself thinking about them constantly, wondering how they were doing when he was away, hoping they were safe and free. One evening, as the sun set and painted the sky with shades of orange and pink, he watched the mother bear and cub sitting together near a stream. The mother bear drank slowly while the cub played nearby, occasionally glancing back at him. It was a peaceful moment, and he felt a wave of happiness wash over him. He realized that sometimes helping someone, no matter how small or different, could bring an unexpected sense of fulfillment and joy. He knew he would never forget these days, the bond he had formed with these wild creatures, and the trust they had placed in him. It was a reminder that compassion and courage could create connections that were truly extraordinary. As the weeks passed, the bond between the man and the bears grew stronger. He continued his visits to the forest, making sure the mother bear's leg was healing fully and that the cub was safe and well-fed. Each time he arrived, the little cub would run toward him, squealing with excitement and rubbing against his legs. It was a strange and beautiful feeling, to be accepted and trusted by a wild animal, and he felt a sense of responsibility like he had never experienced before. The mother bear, while cautious, began to show signs of recognition. She no longer flinched when he approached, and sometimes she even came close, watching him with calm eyes. There was a silent communication between them, a deep understanding that he was there to help, not to harm. The forest seemed less lonely with them around. He felt a part of their world, and they seemed a part of his. One afternoon, as he sat on a fallen log watching the cub play near a stream, he noticed how intelligent the little bear was. The cub seemed to study him, tilting its head, observing his movements, and occasionally mimicking small gestures. It was as if it understood that he had saved their lives and wanted to learn from him. The sight made him smile, and he realized that they were not just surviving, they were thriving, growing stronger each day, and beginning to trust the world again. He had been walking through the forest for hours, enjoying the quiet and the smell of the trees around him. The sun was beginning to dip behind the tall pines, casting long shadows across the forest floor. Every step he took was careful, as the ground was uneven, and he didn't want to twist an ankle far from the nearest road. He loved these moments, away from the noise of the city, where he could feel alone but also part of something much bigger. Nature always had a way of making him feel peaceful, and today was no different, or so he thought. Suddenly, he heard a faint rustle nearby, and he froze. At first, he thought it might be the wind, but then there was again a soft, almost human-like cry. His curiosity got the better of him, and he carefully moved toward the sound, keeping his eyes on the underbrush. The forest was full of small noises, birds, squirrels, the occasional snapping twig. But this was different. It was high-pitched, urgent, and it pulled at something inside him. As he parted a cluster of bushes, he couldn't believe his eyes. A tiny baby bear was sitting on the ground, looking at him with wide, scared eyes. It was small, not much bigger than a large dog, with fur that looked soft and slightly matted. The cub shivered, and every few seconds it let out a pitiful sound, almost like a plea for help. The sight of it made his heart tighten. He had seen bears in documentaries, in photos, even once at a zoo, but nothing compared to this moment. This little creature looked helpless, and there was something almost human about the way it was looking at him, begging without words. He crouched down slowly, trying to seem as non-threatening as possible. The baby bear took a cautious step back, but didn't run. It was clearly trying to tell him something, and he realized that it wasn't just lost. There was a sense of urgency in its movements, a message that he somehow understood even without words. The cub made a little noise again, and then turned its head toward a narrow path leading deeper into the forest. It looked back at him, then back at the path, as if urging him to follow. At first, he hesitated. Going deeper into the forest alone could be dangerous, especially with wild animals around. Bears could be unpredictable, and he didn't want to risk getting hurt. But something in the way the cub looked at him, so trusting and desperate, made him take a deep breath and follow. He moved slowly, watching every step, and the cub stayed ahead of him, occasionally looking back to make sure he was still coming. The path led him through thick trees, past fallen logs, and small streams. The forest was quieter here, and the air felt heavier, almost charged with tension. Every now and then, the cub would stop and look around, ears perked, as if listening for something he couldn't hear. He realized that the cub was leading him somewhere important, somewhere believed he could help. His heart raced, a mix of fear and curiosity, keeping him moving forward. After a while, they came to a small clearing. The sight that met his eyes made him catch his breath. There, trapped in a snare, was a larger bear, the mother of the little cub. She was struggling, trying to pull free, but the metal loop around her leg held her tightly. Her fur was dirty and matted, and she had a few small cuts in the snare, which made him wince. The bear's eyes were full of pain and fear, but the moment she saw the cub, there was a flicker of hope. She seemed to understand that help had arrived, even if she didn't know how it would come. The cub rushed forward, making high-pitched noises, pacing back and forth, clearly upset that its mother was trapped. It looked at him again, pleading, and he realized he couldn't leave. The fear of getting hurt by a bear was real, but the thought of leaving this mother and her cub in pain was unbearable. He carefully approached the mother bear, moving slowly and speaking softly, trying to reassure her with calm words and gentle gestures. He knew he had to be smart. Any sudden movement could make her panic, and that could end badly for both of them. He took a moment to assess the snare. It was tight and strong, probably set by a hunter not far from here. He needed a plan, something safe and quick. Luckily, he had a small knife and some rope in his backpack, items he always carried on hikes for emergencies. He started working carefully, loosening the snare bit by bit. The mother bear watched him the whole time, her breathing heavy, muscles tense, ready to fight or flee. The cub stayed close to her, occasionally rubbing against her, making quiet sounds of encouragement. Minutes felt like hours, but eventually he managed to loosen the snare enough to free her leg. She didn't bolt immediately, instead taking a few careful steps back, eyes still on him, wary but no longer panicked. The cub let out a small squeal of relief, rushing to her side and nudging her gently. He stepped back, keeping his distance, letting the mother bear decide what to do next. It was a tense moment, filled with unspoken communication between man and beast. He felt a rush of adrenaline, but also a strange sense of peace, knowing he had done the right thing. After a few moments, the mother bear moved away, tested her leg, and then returned to her cub. They stayed close together, communicating silently, the bond between them evident. The cub ran back to him briefly, looking up with those big, trusting eyes one more time, before returning to its mother. He watched them for a while, making sure they were okay, feeling an unexpected connection to these wild creatures. It was a moment he knew he would never forget.